Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more, or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Empower.
Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risks. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Om Namaste.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
It's really cool.
Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the Rosbiff Rugby Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, the top 14, Pro de National, the French national team, and the brilliant towns, cities, bars, restaurant, food, fans, and everything else that makes French rugby so bloody brilliant. Rob, you're looking quite. I don't know if it's the white t-shirt. Is it a new lid? Fresh cut?
It is new lid. It is new lid.
It is. Yes. Spotted.
I'm also no hat today, no stash, strict neutrality ahead of this final on Friday. Also because I've now got all the windows shut. I think a hat would have just kind of made me melt a little bit more. We're recording this on Tuesday evening, and even though it's 10 p.m., it is still absolutely boiling.
Yeah, it's pretty toasty in the city. I knew something was up. You know, when you can't quite put your finger on it. There's no French rugby kit whatsoever to be seen, like behind you, on you.
Just my Manly Warringah Sea Eagles shorts is the only piece of stuff that they are. Yeah,
ahead of.
Well, I might be wearing them, Richard. I might not be. You know, who knows? Who knows what's on the bottom half?
State of Origin tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning. Yeah. State of Origin 1 was the first time since the 70s that both teams have been captained by players from the same NRL side, which was Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. DCE and Jake Travojevic.
There you go. DCE's been around a fair while now.
He's been around for years, yeah.
He'd been around when I think I was watching him play. That's 10 years ago. So fair play. Daly Cherry Evans, some player. We might as well touch on it briefly. We spoke about England last week. It's a Tuesday evening. We've delayed recording this in order to watch the football.
You sound jaded, Richard.
I do feel jaded. It was actually it wasn't quite as poor maybe as the other day, but it's deflating, isn't it? Or are we just being teed up for ecstasy when it all starts to come together in the knockouts?
I think Eddie Jones would respond to this with just a bit of give yourself an uppercut, boys. You know, England finished top of the group. Like, what's there to complain about? You know, I don't know. I
The
don't
worst
watch
press conference ever with his
the
with his
worst slash
Akuba.
best. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I don't watch a lot of football like the whole game. And in my head, it's always quite slow paced, like England were tonight. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a bit of a snob and actually not knowing anything about football. But I like my following of football is actually more listening to match of the day while I'm kind of pottering about the flat or listening to podcasts. I quite like the storylines. I quite like reading about it, but I don't actually sit down and watch much more than the odd bit of highlights.
Well, I think as someone, both the teams we follow are in the same league in League Two, I think as much as I enjoy going to watch it, I think maybe not the best comparison in terms of being a bit slow compared to when you're looking at the fourth tier. So what would that be? National 2. So if you're, so if we're using that as the benchmark, then maybe we're a bit off. But look, the dream's still alive, isn't it? The dream is still alive.
Not for me, mate. Scotland were robbed.
Oh, of course, yeah. Another brave effort.
Yeah, another
very,
effort.
very brave. Been a few of those actually. Almost
Scotland do it really excelling in the bravery.
The brave stakes. The 2020 World Cup was that was brave.
Yeah.
There was bloody brave. We'll touch on it. Was Glasgow,
yeah. That was better than brave. That was a victory.
That was
most un-Scottish thing for years.
Outstanding. Yeah, I don't know. I don't care too much about Glasgow. Exeter play them twice a year without fail. So that will definitely happen again in the Champions Cup next year. But
coldest place you've ever been? One of the few places in the UK that my biz about to overflow.
That you see in a French rugby team when we went to watch Glasgow, La Rochelle. Yeah. Dare I say it, a sort of lesser spotted La Rochelle at that point. I think that was their first time in the tournament, possibly 2019.
No, their first time was 2018 or possibly even 2017. They got to quarterfinals against Scarlets in 2018, sorry.
Did they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, very cold. Fair play, Glasgow Warriors. And unfortunately, not fair play, La Rochelle. Should we go straight into two massive back-to-back semi-finals, Friday night, Saturday night, which were just wicked fun for starters, having them there in Bordeaux, which is an incredible city. The Matmut Atlantique as well, just to touch on it. I know we've said it before. It's an unbelievable stadium.
It's so cool, isn't it? I hadn't quite realised how cool it looks aerially. Like they're perfectly square. Because obviously you see those big white pillars, but actually went from the sky, it looks like kind of icicles, doesn't it? But it's so perfectly in shape. What's the word? In proportion, like every bit.
Very clean.
Yeah.
Very clean cut. Yeah. It's also, I feel like most kind of modern stadiums these days, they tend to be, or like the external bit tends to be round, and that kind of almost harsh rectangle that the Atlantique is almost looks a bit old fashioned in a way that's quite endearing.
And
it's anything but. Like it's an incredible stadium. It's steep, which I think is like the real key marker for a big ground, isn't it? If you feel like you're gonna topple over and hit the 22 meter line, it's probably a good place to watch rugby.
When you're in row 100,
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, where do we want to start with this one? Obviously, Toulouse, I think, as we both anticipated, ran out winners in the end.
I don't think we quite anticipated the game we got, though, did we, Richard?
No, it was a bit. I feel like it was a little bit of a strange one in ways. This, I felt maybe a little bit by both of them. Actually, there was some real high quality. I don't know if I just felt a little bit shortchanged by the red card and what that did to the game and that sort of thing. I don't know. There was some fantastic rugby.
One place I do want to start. It feels like quite a long time ago Friday now, but you referenced that I've had a haircut. I had my haircut on Friday, and my barbers are all Italian, And so quite often the conversation naturally drifts to football. Sometimes I've tried to educate them a little bit on Italian rugby and quite how much of a legend Sergio Parise is. But weirdly enough, during my haircut on Friday, we were talking about the rivalry between France and Italy in football, and obviously, conversation moved on to the Zidane headbutt, which for a
Slightly prophetic.
prophetic, a man of North African origin headbutting someone on a big occasion. I think that certainly tickled me when I was kind of thinking about it later on, as Reda Wardi was headbutting Julien Marchand for a little bit of chat. From what I could tell, he got Julien Marchand got a yellow card for kind of laughing. Or I don't know what he did. He didn't really do
provocation.
Wrong.
I think very mild provocation.
Anything?
No, I think if if Wardy hadn't been red carded, I don't think Marchand would have been. It was also one of those headbutts. You're like, you might as well apply.
Quite bad in real time though.
Oh, I'm not having that. It was a nudge. It's a red card. You can't do it. It's stupid. It's completely like inexcusable. But there's absolutely no damage to be done. Unlike Zidane, who was it?
Materazzi.
Was it Materazzi?
Marco Materazzi. And I know what he said, but I'm not going to repeat it. But it's different. It's not quite the full truth of what people think is the truth.
Right. Okay. So yeah, proper red mist moment, Reda Wardi. Should we go into some of the rugby rather than the histrionics?
Just two things on that. First of all, Julien Marchand, as you probably expect, did not go down, which was good to see. You never know with
because he barely touched him.
French rugby players, whether Pascal Pape would have gone down,
and he's got a head like a fridge. But
yeah, the other thing was. And I saw it on Instagram, people talking about there was like rugby values, #rugby values type thing of Antonio shaking the hand of Thibaut Flamand. And I noted, but even before I did it, I noticed at the time, there wasn't much kind of apology or anything from Reda Wardi to Julien Marchand or vice versa. I think Marchand taps him on the back and then starts jogging off, but there's no kind of sorry, pal, lost my head there. Those guys were teammates scrummaging alongside each other 6-7 months ago. So I always find that quite interesting when you've got two former teammates or international teammates that go up against each other and kind of have a bit of a fight on field in a club game. I think I thought that was quite curious.
Yeah. Proper head loss moment. Maybe there was not much pat on the back from Wardy because he was just still stewing, which I think
he's got no interest in shaking his hand. Like he looks,
he's fuming. First half were notable for two English jacks, both getting yellow cards. Would have got really good odds on the old bet builder on something like that. It was in the first half. I thought was interesting because it wasn't. It was exciting, and I thought it finished like the way La Rochelle kind of nudged into the lead at the end of the half was just felt like it was at a really nice point. Like it had just simmered up nicely. They were looking really physical. La Rochelle kind of more than in it in terms of they weren't. You'd say Toulouse had the lion's share of the rugby, but La Rochelle in the way they do, they're big men to the fore. Kind of like just like a tale as old as time in terms of all the good things seem to come through exactly who you'd expect in the La Rochelle team.
Yeah, like I think the one thing I noticed was like proper like farmer strength from Greg Aldrit. Like I don't think I've quite ever kind of never quite been able to place like his power or kind of what his kind of power or strength, or because obviously he's phenomenally physical player, but this game I kind of noticed it was actually he's got a farmer strength to him. It's just like a kind of like a giant shift rolling a big stone sort of thing, like kind of they just spoil everything, really, didn't they? For Toulouse, like they kind of were pretty good at disrupting everything. Yeah, they just made a mess, and they were pretty clinical whenever they got into the 22.
Yeah.
It's done pretty good end of the season on that front. I thought Ramos was brilliant in the first half. A couple of outside breaks where he just like, it's so easy because he's so slow paced in terms of making everything look so comfortable. You forget that he is absolutely rapid when he wants to be. Yeah, those I didn't really have too much to say about. I just felt there's loads of little things that I found quite interesting in the first half, like the line out. Like they just, when you've got Flamon and Arnold lifting Rumat, it's like, how on earth is anyone ever going to get higher than that?
Scaffolding.
Yeah,
it was good. And then I don't know. I'm slightly.
I still think that the first half, though, although La Rochelle went in up, it did still feel like Toulouse were keeping them at arm's length to an extent.
Yeah, and I think that can be said for the whole game, and the fact that La Rochelle ended up with 13 men obviously kind of accentuates that massively. But you always felt that Toulouse were going to have a little bit too much. You felt that they weren't quite maybe clicking as much as they'd like to, which I think doesn't bode particularly well for Bordeaux in the final, which we'll obviously talk about in a moment.
No. A load of those guys hadn't played for 4 weeks. So
yeah, like a little bit rusty, and they still had enough. And it was just, I think, at times that kind of brutality of Skelton, Engine, of Aldred, and the rest of the as we said the other week, like the La Rochelle back row finished the year really well, with Jegu coming in and Cancorier. Antonio, that kind of it felt like utterly inevitable when Antonio went off for the hit on Flamel. Albeit I thought they had a brilliant kind of 10-minute patch after that.
They rallied briefly, didn't they?
Yeah. They were fantastic. They turned over Toulouse in possession. And actually the bit that killed them was, so the series of events, as I remember it, was a fantastic line-out move over the top, kind of set play, almost like a little bit of a trick play, which gets them into the corner. Absolutely mince the Toulouse scrum down in the corner. Take a poor option for the advantage, opt to go again, and then Kerr Barlow, whether it's a miscommunication, whether the ball gets choked up at the back of the scrum, fails to kind of get the ball out, gets turned over, penalty to lose. Reda Wardi off the back of it loses his head, and the metaphorical pin in that recovery balloon was pretty stark. From there, it was just, and to be honest, even after that, I thought they did all right with 13 men. Like, there was some serious effort, but it's one of those. I think if they'd had 14, I think if they'd had 15, I think the class of Toulouse would have been a bit too much.
It's interesting that they took off Piquet. Like, probably if you look at the whole 15, is probably the weakest player, but obviously they felt the threat was the backs of Toulouse, and they had enough physicality up front to match them, even without Antonio. And like there was no complaints from anyone really, from Rog, from Antonio. None of them really looked like particularly, like Aldred. None of them looked that pissed off. But Toulouse had one try like chalked off that would have been sensational, with the long ball from Kinghorn. Malia, like, I actually think could be one of the best right wingers in the world. I don't know. That sounds ridiculous because he's starting right wing for the European.
Certainly
champions.
One of the informed right wingers in the world.
He just does a lot of things right. Like, he seems very good at not getting bundled into touch. He seems very good at holding his width. He seems very good at kind of chipping it in behind or giving an inside ball or whatever he needs to do. And then his finishing is just good. You don't see him cock up many finishes.
He's a very good finisher, yeah. And it also sort of player, I think probably a couple of months ago, lots of people were not saying like a weak link in the Toulouse team, but maybe stands out as somebody not quite at the same level. And I don't know if that's sometimes I feel like some of these almost utility players get that kind of tag, don't they? Because they're seen as maybe not quite good enough in one position to nail it down, when in essence the truth might be that they're actually really good in a lot of positions. Like he's played a lot of 10, and to switch, and quite seamlessly as well in the top 14 for Toulouse this year, and to sort of switch to the right wing, that's a very different set of skills.
And it was actually I kind of had always thought, like, how's this guy in the starting team for Toulouse? Why is this guy starting fullback for Argentina? Like, don't quite get him. And then seeing him in the flesh against Cast in that game, I was at Stade as well, and I thought he was unbelievable. And you just see the kind of skill and the time on the ball. It's the sort of thing one of those things you pick up can be any player in any sport, really. You see them in the flesh and you realise the kind of time on the ball they've got. And you kind of just do a complete 180 on your opinion of them. From that point, I've been like, this guy is absolutely phenomenal.
And he's been good at the right time of the year as well, when you need him to be. So Toulouse, I say, not without some drama, but ultimately made it through, did what they had to do. You rightly identify, hadn't played together for quite a while as well. Anything else to say on Toulouse, La Rochelle?
Only what on earth was going on with Dorian Aldegheri at the start of the game? He had a scrum. He started with a scrum cap on. Then the scrum cap was off after a minute, and then he basically had a whole tub of Vaseline put on his head. And after 9 minutes, it took them 9 minutes to be like, no, that is bleeding a lot. There's a blood sub. I think it started bleeding when he came back on as well. It was just.
He also gave away. He seemed to be proper penalty, just single-handedly dishing out confetti penalties. Yeah, brilliant. Like that real kind of shruggish, like lolloping prop. It's good to see.
But also the other side, quite nasty season-ending injury for
Yes. Yeah, I did see that. That's a real shame. Like, amazing player. I mean, like, that guy has been central to pretty much everything that has been good about Toulouse and France for the last 4 years. I know he's been playing longer than that, but he's probably first near enough. Antoine Dupont, near enough first name on the team sheet. I hope it's. I mean, it's obviously it's a broken leg of some kind, right? So it's not.
I assumed it was knee because he got his studs.
Yeah, you just hope it's something that is recoverable at some point. I'm sure it will be. Love his marauding runs and sort of slightly untouched shirt and just that vibe. So get well soon, Big Cyril. Talking of big men, Ben Tamafuna was watching this one in the stands, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe they'll be next to each other in on Friday night in Marseille. We'll touch that in a sec. Should we move on then to Stade Francais Bordeaux?
Yes.
And I've got to say, I know you really love this. I struggled a bit to watch this because I sort of watched it between one off the back of a very warm, very attritional day of cricket. That resulted in a draw. So feeling fairly jaded by the time I came to watching this. And then I was trying to watch it on various trains with intermittent signal. So my patience did wear slightly thin, but I think I've seen probably what I needed to.
I think it was that sort of game that it was kind of like, you probably I kind of dipped in and out a little bit. And I actually decided, I'm not gonna kind of have half an eye on this. I'm gonna give the last 20 minutes of this my full deserved attention. And I thought it was brilliant kind of end to the game, and it was real back and forth sort of game. The first thing, a slight admittal that I was going to get it wrong from me. the atmosphere was very much Allez UBB, wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
very much not that neutral. And also the one thing that you were incredibly disappointed about, and then I kind of realised, and while I was watching it, that there was another player missing. But I reckon selection denied us the two quickest players of Madosh Tambwe and Penny Dakawanga.
Disgraceful.
Gutted, yeah. One of your favourite players, though, that was playing, had a brilliant first half. He was basically man of the match for the first 20 minutes. Maxime Lamotte.
He's been brilliant for them, like this year, particularly second half of the season. He's been awesome.
I think he's not 100% on his lineouts. Like, he's not quite at Marchand Malvaca level. Mind you, it's quite easy to lose the odd line out when you've got Sekou Makalu and Paul Gabriel and Romain Briat running the show in the opposition line out. Andrew Mertens referred to Maxime Lamotte as the dung beetle. Did you hear this?
I didn't hear this. No, I don't know what's the context.
He was looking for a second try, so he was relentless in his search of number 2.
Oh my word! That is, you know what's
quite
bad
a Kiwi
about that?
joke. That
it's just, yeah. Well, let's move on. Let's move on from that. Mertz, great man, absolute legend of the game. But if you're saving that one up for the right time, I'm not having it.
But Maxime Lamotte did get 2 tries from driving mauls, which is something that kind of surprised me, given that it was weird because a lot of the first half, they didn't really target the line out. They didn't really hammer them at maul time. They didn't really hammer them at scrum time. And then second half, you kind of started to get the Stade Francais that we perhaps expected, but it needed that late onslaught at the end of the first half to see anything from Stade Francais. And Mertz has been pretty good in his analysis of this stuff over the last few weeks, and he was just saying they're just showing nothing in attack. Like, there's no invention, which I think is pretty fair. I think, we didn't see anything of Ward or Marchand in attack, or Lester Etienne in attack. It was kind of either Segons kicks it or he shovels it on to Leo Barre, who kicks it.
It's frustrating as well because we're saying a lot about their defense, but when they've clicked in attack this year, they've been brilliant. And you obviously, goes without saying, you're allowed to have whatever game plan you want, and you're allowed to have a slightly more, conservative, for want of a better word, game plan. But I feel all the best teams, or the big performances now you generally see are like, the game's shifted quite a lot, hasn't it? In terms of, like, you need to offer ball in hand. Even arguably the most pragmatic team of them all recently, the Springboks, like their ability to counter attack and kind of press the switch when they need to. So yeah, I'm with you. Bit disappointed by how flat they were, because I just don't think you can win games against good teams with that sort of level of ambition, unfortunately.
But we did also have to wait 50 odd minutes to see the Bordeaux team that we've kind of come to expect in terms of, and that was just attacking from deep. Bosheton at some point basically stole the ball. I thought he was brilliant again.
He's class, isn't
he? Student pub landlord. But he was everywhere, and he's a brilliant athlete. But eventually, kind of, there's an outside break from Murfana, who, to be fair to him, like, when he goes for it, he finds an outside break. I mean, it eventually kind of falls to Penno, who tries his best to butcher it and also pass the ball forward.
I was going to say that looked absolutely miles forward, that pass, but yeah, never mind.
But the main man in that managed it. They had that break, and then just managing it to get it to the outside was Maxime Lucu, who, again, I thought was
class.
Absolutely masterful in terms of managing. His kicking from hand is so long, both feet. And he kind of, the more the game went on, the more it became Luku, Garcia kick well, just out kicking Cockott, Weber, Barre, Segons. I thought Louis Bielbarre looked really composed as well, kind of slotted in at fullback, kicked a lot. You could have saw him taking his time, kind of snuffing out any threat really. But yeah, I thought Luku was brilliant again. I know one player who we've both been pretty sceptical about because of his time in the Premiership, who I was pretty impressed with this game, was Adam Coleman, kind of actually having the performance that someone of that size should be having, like kind of back to when he was kind of coming through with the Wallabies. He was just putting himself about. He was carrying loads, big part of those driving mauls. I thought it's the sort of performance you should see. And I don't think we've seen that enough from him in his time in Europe. But he had a great game.
Excellent. But notwithstanding what we've just said, it could have been different at the end. So two pushover tries, rolling maul tries. Pair, how do you pronounce it? Stade Francais replacement hooker.
Pairs Blanc.
Pairs Blanc. One of which in the red.
Like 84 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Like they'd been camped for about 7 minutes, like in the 22. I just had, as soon as it got to like 78 minutes, 79 minutes, and they'd been in the 22 for a couple of minutes, I just thought to myself, I know how this ends. This ends with a try in the corner and Joris Segons misses the kick. I could just feel it.
Joris.
Hit the post twice as well. Once off a drop goal, once off a penalty. And then that camera angle they gave, I swear all three of them went over and all three of them missed.
Well, I was going to ask you this. So the kind of camera angle that's almost from the top of the post, is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah.
I was like, it looks like it's as close as it possibly could be to being over. Like, it looks like it's gone through the post.
Yeah. And there was one from Luca that was exactly the same.
If you'd sent it to me with no context, I'd have been like, "Oh, I'm not sure, but I reckon it's probably gone through."
Yeah,
so there must be.
It was just that angle because they obviously showed it from behind, and it misses quite a bit actually, or not quite a bit, but it definitely misses. His last kick, his last act in a Stade Francais shirt. To be fair, we did flag a few weeks ago that Stade Francais have had the worst goal kicking percentage in the top 14 this year, and
which is remarkable, really.
Joris yet again, kind of a little bit flaky when it mattered, and ultimately
awarded with a at the expense of an injured Louis Carbonell, awarded with a call up to the squad for Argentina.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you know.
Oh God!
Every cloud, silver lining. You thought he'd be back of the pile, but I think regardless, it sets up probably like La Rochelle have had a great end to the year, but flattered to deceive. Stade Francais, I think, have probably surprised all of us. But I think it's fair to say it probably sets up the final that we all wanted and dare I say predicted as well.
Going back to our predictions, which I think were made after about round 8. No, round 18. So with about 7 or 8 games to go, we both said the final would be, and it's on our Instagram still
for proof. It's documented.
We did say that this would be the final.
Yeah.
We both predicted Toulouse to win and Bordeaux to be runner-up.
I think so. It's going to be a hell of an occasion. Stade Velodrome, what an amazing place. I can't change my prediction on that. Unfortunately, I think.
Do we know who's playing for one? Well, Stade Toulousain versus Union Bordeaux Bergler. Well done, Rob. Just like so, Bai's out. We know that.
Bai's out. Tamafuna's out.
Obviously out. Tamafuna is out. Is he?
Yeah, he's done.
Miafu, is he out?
I don't know.
He's got
Don't
a
know.
hamstring tear or a quad tear or something, but didn't sound particularly bad.
Okay.
Jalabert obviously not playing. I think that's it really in terms of the big names. I think everyone else made
Yeah,
it through.
I think so. I mean, look, I think it's Bordeaux. You know how much I like Bordeaux. I think they're brilliant. I thought they were an outside. I still think they should have been an outside bet for the Champions Cup had our man not missed that kick against Harlequins. But I just think it's almost as simple to me as I think if not their best, I think they're missing their most game breaking back and their most game breaking forward in Jalabert and Tamafuna. And I think all of the massive performances, notwithstanding how good some of those guys are, I say Luke has been brilliant. The whole back line's been awesome. Lamotte, I just think they need those guys for me to be able to stand up to a Toulouse team. As I say, last week I felt were just a little bit off, and I don't think they're going to be like that again. I think they're, yeah. I don't know. I hope it is, but I don't think it's going to be as close as I would like it to be.
I think you're right on Jalabert because the Tamafuna thing is slightly neutralised by the loss of Cyril Baye. So like the scrum is going to be pretty even, we think. Kaulashvili was rubbish again, by the way.
Yeah.
Go to Poe, which I'm particularly angry about. Next thing that Poe
He'll be
really
reborn
don't need
at
is another bad scrummaging prop. But I think Jalabert is the big one. I think when you've got, if it's you can't see Bordeaux being on the front foot with the likes of Willis, Rumat, Cross disrupting. You just can't see Bordeaux getting the kind of front foot ball that will give Garcia the kind of time to flourish. I think Toulouse just got too much, haven't they? Too much strength and depth. I think in that forward pack, I think it's probably going to do it. We should say that we are hoping to, because Premier Sports probably won't be doing a kind of full build up. We are hoping to kind of do build up, halftime analysis, full time analysis, a la the studio on Friday night. So watch out on our socials for how we're going to do that. It will either be Instagram Live or YouTube Live or both. But we are hoping to bring you some kind of traditional pre-game and mid-game, post-game type stuff to fill the void.
Please join us. It's going to be a cracker. Righto. French national team coming up. Okay, so the France national team set off for South America, tour of Argentina and, in a flair twist, Uruguay for, I think it's a week, 2 weeks, 2 tests, 3 tests, something like that. Really exciting either way. And as we discussed last week, none of the players from the top 14 finalists are there. So Gaultier has picked a fairly, I think, callow squad, it's fair to say, with a few recognisable names, a few unfamiliar ones. We went through a couple of them last week, but that has since been updated after the spreadsheet is back.
Well, we basically updated it for that. As we predicted, it got updated for the semi-finalists. So loads of La Rochelle players have now been added, and quite a few Stade Francais players have now been added as well. So I guess the big additions are Judicael Concorrier, who we were kind of calling for a little bit last week. Georges-Henri Colombe will start at tight head, you'd imagine, in the absence of Winnie Atonio, who's getting a rest. Oscar Jegu, who's had a brilliant end to the season in the back row, 21-year-old for La Rochelle. I think the big one is Antoine Hastoy, who is, in my eyes, especially as you say, if Louis Carbonell's now injured, in my eyes, Antoine Hastoy is quite comfortably the best 10 in that. Well, certainly in inform, Antoine Hastoy is quite comfortably the best 10 in that squad. I've not seen loads of Leo Berdo. if I'm honest. But I wonder if we'll see Leo Barre stepping in at 10 at all with Jaminet at fullback. I don't know. That's an option. It's the addition of the La Rochelle players has been the big thing. Simeli Daunivuku is a really interesting one because he's a young Fijian heritage. I think he might actually be born in France. Certainly his dad played in France. 19-year-old centre who I've seen a couple of times for La Rochelle. He's raw. Like he's clearly powerful, but he makes quite a few mistakes. And was eligible to play in the under-20s. He played in the under-26 nations as well. He's obviously 19, so that makes him under-20. They seem to have a lot of centres in this squad when you think that it's probably going to be Frisch at 12 and Gaeton at 13, or maybe Jules Favre at 12. Jules Favre seems like one of those players who's just a name on a team sheet to me. Like I couldn't tell you what he does. Maybe I'm not watching close enough. He's probably a great nuts and bolts 12, but I couldn't tell you much about him.
Yeah, so I think this is going back to Daunivuku, if I pronounced that correctly.
Daunivuku.
So I've seen this a couple of social media comments on this today. It's quite remarkable actually. So his dad, did you just mention his dad played in France?
Yeah, his dad played in France, I think.
His dad played in France. He played his last game for SAR Rochefort, which I don't know, Stade something, Racing Rochefort, at the age of 47 in Fédéral 2 in April, just like 2 months ago. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. So there's a picture here. I don't know when it was taken. His dad looks like an absolute unit as well.
I mean, he is an absolute unit at 19.
Well, his dad's a unit at 47. So, yeah, keep an eye out for him. That's really exciting. But what is maybe a bit of a strange question to put you in like Fabien Galtier's shoes. Like, what are you looking for? Obviously, the one thing is like bloodsome young players, etc. But who in this squad do you think they're looking at to really like fully come through? Because there's a really, I don't know if you follow Russ Petit on Twitter, who's a rugby statistician. Yeah. So if I can find the exact tweet or the exact X or whatever you want to call it, essentially the makeup of the squad in terms of caps is and debutants is nearly exactly the same as it was 3 years ago when they went to Australia.
Really?
So 42 players, Australia 2021, 42 players, 172 caps. 22 of the 42 uncapped. Here we go. 36 of the 42 had fewer than 10 caps in 2021, and 22 of those 42 were uncapped. France Tour of South America, 42 players with 196 caps, so 24 more between them, but 36 of the 42 have under 10 caps, and 22 of the 42 are uncapped.
No way.
So
that's mental, isn't it?
Some freakish similarities. And I was looking at it because I mentioned last week the sort of, I guess, parallels between, from an English perspective, when England toured Argentina 2017 and Eddie Jones it was quite a squad because of the Lions, and they, like your Browns and Haskells and people were playing, but it was the first time anyone had seen Tom Curry, Ben Curry, Sam Underhill was playing at the Ospreys. So it's there are guys there, and you think, wow, like the careers they've had since, like Luke Cowan-Dickey, who was Lions hooker, I think had 2 caps, like some pretty decent names blooded on that trip. And I looked at the equivalent from the 2021 tour to Australia.
Jelonch captain, didn't he?
Jelonch was captain, yeah. So they'd obviously, I'd say fair to say, earmarked for decent things at that stage. But beyond that, with the exception of a few guys who already had caps, so I think Penno toured and was 22, there's only a couple that have been like real permanent mainstays of really strong French squads the last few years. So the ones that stood out were Villiers and Cameron Wacky, who have both since fallen out of favour. I don't know what.
Not go.
I don't think Jalabert did go. Let me check.
I'm gonna have to
Oh,
get this squad up.
yeah, I might have
One
got that
thing,
wrong. It didn't stand
one
out to
thing,
me.
one thing I did notice though, which was I was hoping um to kind of pick. We were hoping to get Ilta Daffith on French rugby journalist on this. I was hoping to pick his brains on this. Um, but you notice there, Rich, you can see there's three names crossed out, which unfortunately were two of the most exciting names we had last
Yeah.
week in Regis Montagna, Grenoble prop, and Tavita Tatafu, who and I saw like something on like Rugby Rama, but I didn't kind of delve into the article. I didn't quite have time to. Basically,
He's not eligible. Is that correct?
I don't know, but it was Lauren Sempre. Is that no? It was Thibaut, whatever the S&C bloke's name is. Was talking about how they couldn't take Tatafu, but yeah, I think he's still not eligible, which is
Yeah, my understanding is he's not quite eligible, but he technically would have been eligible for the Uruguay game because it's not it doesn't hold test status.
ah
So yeah, there could have been more parallels to to bring together what I was just saying there. Eddie Jones and a tour to Australia, as he did with the England team a couple of years ago, and he took Patrick Schickling of Exeter Chiefs, who
yeah.
simply wasn't eligible, which is amazing in modern sport. So yeah, there we go. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the ones there's not pressure on, but I don't know. One of the guys who stands out really is for me is Gaetan, who we've spoken about loads. Like everyone loves him, everyone rates him, but he's been in and around these squads for quite a while now. And am I right to say he hasn't yet made his senior debut?
Played against Scotland in the World Cup warm up.
Did he? Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Same game that Bielbiaré made his debut, and they went with Bielbiaré, obviously.
Fair.
For the World
But
Cup.
do you think I'm overthinking it to say that for someone like that, maybe there is a little bit of pressure because of the sort of hype surrounding him?
Yes, I think so. I think this is also quite a good opportunity for him because you've got a lot of centres missing in, well, obviously Fiku and Dante, but also more importantly, perhaps given the age profile of some of them, you've also got Murfana, Deportet, and Paul Cost all missing, and they are direct competitors. So this is his time in the shop window. You'd like to think he's going to start. I assume they'll go Frisch at 12. I know Frisch plays a bit 13. That feels like they're just going to cap him to capture him. He's a good player. He's obviously, Munster have been really good. But
I think he's a good player, and I think the stocks at 12 maybe aren't quite as robust as we thought they were. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a bit of a run over a longer
I'm just
period of
looking at the
time.
squad. There's quite a lot of repeat names here of some of the ones that I perhaps
There
wouldn't have
are,
thought.
aren't there? Demba Bamba.
Like Jean-Baptiste Gross, Barlow, the Stafford say locks I wouldn't have thought of. Pierre-Henri Azago and Pacenti both went. Makalu went, isn't on this one. That's our big one. Diallo, he went. Van Verberg. Baptiste Cuyu, Louis Carbonell, he's obviously not going. Joris Sagons went on that tour.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think you've been a little bit harsh on Jonathan Dante, not calling him out as one of the ones that's made a bit of a mark.
Fair.
Roman Buros went on that tour, which is interesting. Melvin Jaminet.
I think Jaminet was in Pro Les Deux at the time with Perpignan.
Perpignan, yeah. Yeah, it's a weird list, that, isn't it?
I think Chilonge get sent off for diving or something, or he got someone sent off. He dived, didn't he?
What's his face? Corambetti?
Yeah,
there was a bit of diving. I think the other ones that they want to get something from are they probably want Hastoy to nail down that third choice. Like they probably do want an option there that isn't Ramos stepping in, if given their injury records of Entamac and Jalibert. I think they're going to want to see Lenny Nucci in a leadership role and, coming through. We know about Solo Tuolangi. I think the other one that I was eyeing up that I've now lost, that I was thinking, Oscar Jegu, I think they want to get game time in. I think they want to see where Jordan Joseph is at. I think they will give Jordan Joseph quite a bit of game time because he's a guy who has risen and fallen and, has got a lot of promise.
Still only 23. Some of these guys, it's surprising how young they still are.
Yeah.
Jordan Joseph, Gross, just loads of them. I thought they were all. I think
they've got to. That's the other thing is they've got to build some depth at prop. I think. So Georgie Berrier, actually, I really like, and I do quite like Jean-Baptiste Gross, and they're both pretty young still. And unfortunately, the two tight heads that we thought we might see a bit more of aren't going to go. I think Tatafu is going to come into it, isn't he? At some point.
You think so? Yeah, you'd think Colon will be starting tight head, won't he?
The wingers are pretty disappointing, I think. Other than Atisogbe, who we've previewed, but I just can't see Lester Etienne at 29 or Joris Gironde at 28 being kind of Hulu's 24. Like, yeah, he's a good player, but like none of those guys scream international quality, do they? Other than Atisogbe, who is the real deal.
Maybe not, but they've had. I think we mentioned it. Was it last week, the week before? They've had quite a lot of turnover on the wing, haven't they, over the years? France, like with the exception of Penaud, speaking about Dumortier, who was in the mix for a long time, Villiers, and these are guys who, when they were playing, it wasn't, they weren't fringe players. They were comfortably in those sides and kind of cast aside quite quickly. I don't know if that's just the nature of being a winger, and
the All Blacks do it, don't they?
They do, yeah, they definitely do. So yeah, maybe they're just, I don't know, maybe they've seen something in these guys that they think they might be able to squeeze 10, 15 test matches out of at some point. I don't know. I wouldn't want to second guess what's going on behind Fabian's glasses.
I think going back to and we looked at it last week, the players missing. I've just remembered Alaverity Raka is also in this missing list, but Teddy Thomas is another winger. But there's just so many players that could be playing. As we said last week, we are on kind of 4th, 5th choice 9, which is ridiculous given how good those 9s are. But yeah, if you think that Ramos would probably slot in as 3rd choice 10, we are on 4th choice 10. The centres we've said, the second row, you're missing your first choice 1s quite comfortably. Your first choice front row isn't there. You've got so many back rowers missing. I know there's still some brilliant talent. It's weird, like just someone like Briat, like some of it is a young side, and then you've just got a few like journeymen in there as well. I just find it, Briat has had a brilliant end of season, but are they really going to be picking a 31-year-old back rower again, or Lester Etienne 29, Joris Gironde 28? Like I just can't see them picking with the players that are coming through. I just can't see them picking them that often.
Yeah. Maybe it's courses. You need a little bit of experienced nous. Not playing Argentina after all. I don't know how loaded Argentina are going to be, but let's not forget they got to a semi-final of a World Cup. Like they're no mugs. It should be fascinating. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. I think it's going to be interesting. A very brief nudge on the kicks off this weekend. France, I think, first game, the 20s World Cup. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's in South Africa, isn't it? Have I made that up?
I have no idea. Well, one player that won't be playing is Matis Castro Ferreira.
Well, quite, yeah.
He is the big name, I would say, in this squad. I think when I saw this squad, I kind of saw him and was excited. But actually, in a way, I saw a few names that I recognised, but I saw quite a lot of names I didn't recognise, and I was perhaps a little bit underwhelmed by it.
I think because
they've got so many players that could be playing. Like there's
exactly
4 of them in the full squad.
Yeah, they've been denuded a bit, haven't they, by their own success and how good some of these guys are. But I don't know, it's quite cool because they've been so good, the under-20s, and played like the most ridiculous rugby to watch. The snippets I saw of the Six Nations, they were just incredible. So yeah, and some of the quad, like we've said it before, like Breathe have got some serious players, haven't they, on their hands in terms of.
They've not picked Tom Raffy though, which I find strange. He kicked a lot of clutch goals for Breathe, and was starting 10 for a lot of the Six Nations as well. So, well, certainly started at one point. But yeah, Matisse Ferte, I know you're a big fan of. Carbonneau, they seem to love. Two lads fighting it out two Breathe lads fighting it out with a few Po halfbacks as well. I think Suverby, the scrum half at Po, I think his dad was a little bit of a France legend, a minor France legend. Certainly played for France.
Nice.
They haven't got Patrick Tuifua, who is New Caledonian or something similar, French Polynesian, and is currently playing in New Zealand for like a kind of Mitre 10 team. He's not in there, so I don't know if he's been snapped up by New Zealand, but
there's some big French noise around him, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, basically, whenever you see transfer rumours, you see Patrick Tuifua linked to 12 of the top 14 clubs, just because someone wants to pick him up. But I haven't seen what's happened to him. That was the big one. That and Big Zachary Afan, the enormous tight head at Bordeaux. We've not seen him for a while. I assume he might be injured. Got to be a better scrummager than Kalashvili. So you'd imagine if he's fit, he'd be in the UBB team.
He is unusually large for someone of that age. Like even by the standards of prop forwards in rugby, that guy is scary.
I think generally I don't see enough there, given how indifferent they were in the Six Nations with some of the star names, and the fact they lost in Po with Pasolo Tuolangi, Atisog Bay, Castro Ferreira, all playing, suggests to me that this might not be their year. But you see how much Castro Ferreira's kicked on since then. You think any team with him in it at under 20s level could do some real damage.
Yeah, and to be honest, I've seen one or two comments from a couple of the French rugby journalists who I think are echoing that sentiment. I think they'll definitely challenge, but the feeling is they're probably slightly too shorn of a couple of the guys in the top 14 final, plenty in the senior squad to maybe challenge sort of, in the final, essentially. But
they've got a lot of world. You can see there, we've got a lot of guys who've won it before, 10 guys who won it last year, and quite a lot of those blokes have played a lot of professional rugby. So whereas Ireland, who I think were brilliant in the Six Nations, and England, not many of them have played much professional rugby, and you never know what difference that might make at that age. But yeah.
Well, we'll see. We'll keep an eye out on this. We'll be reporting back on future Rosbis episodes. We'll leave it there with the national stuff and wrap up with a few Petit Fours and Digestifs as ever after this. Okay, there's not much rugby on at the moment, so a little bit thinner on the ground for Petit Fours. From my side, it's mainly just we're now starting to really kick into absolute carnage with the transfer market. I'm sort of envisaging that bloke on Sky Sports News on like the transfer deadline day. What was his name? Jim White with the like gold livery all over the Sky Sports graphics. A couple of notable Australians moving to France. So Joe Powell from Montauban, who's played a bit all over the place, played in the Premiership.
Crap at Leicester. Absolutely crap at Leicester.
going to Montauban, see how he gets on there. The big one, Nacional, the very big one. I don't know if you saw this. Narbonne statement signing Tigeli Nairavoro.
Yeah, I did see that.
Jesus, I mean,
where's he been?
I think he's been in Japan since he left Northampton.
Okay.
Because he was, I mean, he's a guy I never understood why he didn't play more for Australia. I know he wasn't the most complete winger, but when you're 6'6", 20 stone and rapid, just pick him. He was brilliant at Northampton.
And he was even better at Glasgow before that.
Yeah. So, yeah, exciting news for them. Two other teams, just going to call out two other teams who have gone all in or appear to be going all in. Oyonnax not phased by their relegation to Pro League, signed Ollie Kebble from Glasgow Warriors, which is a wicked signing, like quality scrummager. And Chris Smith, fly half from the Bulls, who's he's been outstanding for them for a long time, like very highly regarded. So that feels like a brilliant signing. And then Lyon have gone. Sorry, I saw this before and it made me laugh. So Becca Shvangaradze from Aurillac, back row. That was actually reposted by Ilta, who would have maybe taken us through that. But perhaps the best one is it's another club for one of our favourite rogue lock forwards from Clermont-Auvergne, Thomas Lavanini.
Yeah,
will be joining Lyon as well.
Of course he is. Well, they're losing Taufik.
Well, there you go. So, there are so many transfers going on at the moment. We'll maybe try and have a slightly more frequent segment over the next few weeks to keep abreast of it all. Because
when you were talking about big Australians, I thought you could say Isaac Rodder to Provence, or did we do that one last week?
I don't know if we did, but I think that was announced like as we were recording last week.
Yeah.
And
Grenoble released a lot of players. I kind of did a little bit of a post about it on our story, but notably Barnabé Massa, who's in that France under-20 squad, he's been brilliant for them. Regis Montagne, obviously called up and then not called up for the front squad, and there was someone else who was brilliant for them all season that I can't remember now.
Well,
Headbutts has been released.
Blancpain has gone to Lyon, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Just up the road. So, yeah, lots of moves. Very transient as ever. A lot of fun. What have you got for us?
So, Richard, as we know, there is an election coming up in the UK and there is an election coming up in France. Former Prime Minister or President Francois Hollande was on the campaign trail in Corrèze, which is the kind of region that Brive is in. And he stopped in to celebrate the 120th anniversary of AS Bourtoise. And naturally, being a rugby club, they served him a pint and the lads were gathered round him and egged him on and corralled him into downing said pint. He kind of took a sip and then the song kind of, they're all like blokes in their mid-20s, like absolutely massive kind of classic rugby club lads, started singing, and he kind of looks around and realizes he hasn't really got any other option but to chin it.
Excellent.
Which was brilliant. I'll try and dig it out again, but when I saw the video, I was like, this is absolutely fantastic. The other thing, Richard, and we talked about it a few weeks ago. See, so there's not much rugby going around, but there's still been a few of the lower leagues getting their finals. And the winners of Regional 2 Champion de France were Saint-Pé Union Club, the team based in Saint-Pé-sur-Nivelle in the Basque Country, who beat US Milas in the final. 10 years since their last shield. Can you remember who plays for Saint-Pé Union Club?
Who plays?
Yeah. Who led them to victory, steered the ship at 10.
Oh, am I supposed to know this?
It was a happy weekend for him and his family. A successful weekend for him.
Haven't we been speaking about this? Isn't the club that like Camille Lopez was a part of or something?
No, that's Morleon. This is the one where the fly half is, I'm guessing it's pronounced Zimun, Ximun. Zimun Luku is the fly half for. He was playing a bit of Ritz up until 2022. But I ended up down a Instagram kind of my rabbit hole. So they have the post I saw it on, they tagged another France international, and I ended up going on the Saint-Pé UC or Union Club page, and they had kind of on their stories, their archive, a post from the World Cup, the France World Cup squad, and it showed all the France World Cup squad with their original clubs.
Okay.
And Saint-Pé, I think, was the only club that had 2 players, being Maxime Lucu and Charles Olivon, who would have played together.
Amazing.
The same age, and both left kind of 2009, 2010 when they would have been, I guess, 18, roughly, maybe a little bit younger.
That's very cool.
Yeah, both played there. And that was their first kind of Champion de France title for 10 years. But I think both had left by then. So, and interestingly, being Basque Country, Maxime Lucu obviously went to Biarritz, but Charles Olivon went to Bayonne, which is interesting. I would have thought that was kind of a bit offside for 2 players from the same club. I think Lucu went to Saint-Jean-de-Luz in the meantime as well, which is also obviously very Basque, right on the border. But I had a nice little dive around that. I thought that was a very touching story, that the Lucu family doing very well.
Simon Lucu, superb. Alrighty, I think we're there. We'll obviously be keeping an eye out for our man Maxime Lucu. We'll keep an eye out for Simon Lucu in the stands. It should be an absolute belter on Friday night. Stade Velodrome, what venue, final we wanted. Look, I think we both think Toulouse are favourites, but it's gonna be a cracker. There's gonna be a twist in the tale. And as Rob says, you can join us, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok at Rosbiff Rugby. We'll be doing something live-ish fun for the top 14 final, maybe with a little glass of
get your questions in if you want.
Vin Rouge. Yeah, no boring ones though. Let's keep it light. And then we're straight into the internationals, so we won't be going anywhere. Top 14 final is finally upon us. The end of the French domestic season is here.
This is our time, everyone. French rugby, its moment in the sun is this Friday evening. There's no other rugby on in the world almost, and this is the one league that deserves sole focus is going to get it this Friday, the top 14.
Can't wait. I've been Richard. That has been Rob. We've been Rosbiff Rugby. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
O'Reilly.
Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free and provides a report with solutions based on over 650 million vehicle scans verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we can recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.